Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good.
I heard you back revved as well.
I rebuilt my machine, so I'm just making sure I don't have any technical glitches. How do I sound? Do I sound okay?
Perfect.
Okay. Let's try this real quick here. Let's see if I could do it this way. This would be nice if I could do it this way. Don't know if it's going to let me do this. See if it crashes. Usually it crashes. Yep, there it goes.
It locked up, huh?
It's okay. I didn't think it was going to work. We'll do it this way. Can you see my cursor on the screen?
I can.
Okay, that's helpful. Let me just make sure. Oops. Let me make sure I can go back and forth here. All right.
You basically looks like you're publishing your desktop.
Yeah, I'm basically publishing a screen is what I'm doing. Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
All right, let me just see here. Make sure you can actually hear this audio here. Can you hear that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Comes through.
Right. Perfect. I think we're good.
Awesome. I told Tiffany, we chatted this morning. She created the spring, the January, February trainings and et cetera.
Yep.
So she has rights and stuff where right now we know that whoever creates these webinars is the one with rights to it. And so I said, I'll turn on and then I'll go throw it in the corner and let her sit in the chat for this
Okay.
one.
Yeah, that's fine.
So,
thank you for jumping in early so I could test this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. It last one of the year.
It is. Yes, it is.
Crazy.
I know it is.
Yeah. Wow.
I just did these in person yesterday at Rigidize for 2 groups of their employees. They wanted it on site, so.
Good.
Actually, I'm going to Prevention Council tomorrow to do an on-site one too. So.
That's awesome. I had fun yesterday with Rick, Daryl, and Lance chatting about the upcoming PBR that Rick's going to have with them down there. And the age-old story of, hey, we got all these PCs, more than whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think they have that many employees. And I don't think we're accounting for, hey, we get pockets of them because of grant money or whatever. And did we get rid of the ones that, went offline, and stuff like that? Or so encouraging Daryl and Lance, true these things up, right? Rick will have no clue. And to walk into Robin and say, Robin, wow, you got 40 machines or 30, whatever. She doesn't have that many employees, and let's figure this thing out somehow.
Right.
So, and then I'll have the age-old conversation of, I know like Steve, if somebody has a laptop and a desktop, he's sometimes double charging. And I'm like, yeah, I can't look Robin in the eye and do that to her. I know there's incremental costs because of licensing and stuff like that, but truthfully, a user can only create one problem at a time. So we'll right size it somehow.
Yep.
Oh, our friend Tiffany joined.
All right.
Okay, I'm literally working on right now the notice to go out to the know before customers, those 15 customers, saying we're making a change to Arctic Wolf. And I'll, as soon as I get this wrapped up and out the door, I'll send you a copy of the message I sent them.
Sounds good. Yeah, I still haven't heard back from them yet. I'm gonna follow up with them.
What do you need back from?
Well, what they need from us. Yeah, I mean, I know you mentioned about the CSV, but I mean, is that it? Or, I don't know. So yeah. I gotta follow up with them on that.
Okay. I know Kara, on Friday, they gave us, or last week, they gave us quotes for each of the customers. We basically need to accept those. So I had Kara yesterday send back and say, thank you. We're in the process of accepting those. And I had her purposely add in a little question mark to throw a scud over the bow. What happens, our intent is to move everybody, but what happens if we have one customer, right? So I just had her leave an open-ended question. I don't expect it to happen. I expect everybody to dance and move and us to be able to have it, but
I think so too. It's just, I mean, you never know,
Never know. But again, I'm crafting it right now that, hey, it's no longer my one sentence here is it's no longer sufficient to provide just a phishing simulator and training resources. Now we need to ante it up a little bit with the dedicated team and 24/7 monitoring and, that there's somebody, it's backed by people, not just a tool.
Right.
So we'll see. But we'll take the presumptive stance and move this thing. I'm defining next steps as we will be reaching out. Our PCA team will be working with Arctic Wolf, and we will reach out to you and schedule a migration anticipated taking approximately 1 hour of your time, at most, as we go through this thing, and then they will engage with the ongoing.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. Good luck this morning. Have fun.
Yep. Thank you.
Yep.
Should be able to talk now, Tiffany. I think I have unlocked your mic, I think.
Oh, yep.
Yep,
Hi.
there you go.
So yeah, after this one, I confirmed with you, so after this one, I will have the admin rights to start the cybersecurity trainings.
Fair enough.
For this one, it'd be interesting to see, Tiffany, as people come into the lobby, do you have rights to add them? So if you click the people section at the top, you'll see over on the right pane is a presenters and attendees.
I'm an attendee.
Let's see if I can make you make a presenter. Let's see what happens. All right, now I moved you up to a presenter. How about that?
Look at me moving on up in that world.
Yep. So I will, and when I start hearing, I'll watch the clock with you as it nears the 9 o'clock mark. But as Brian says, okay, let's let people in.
Mm-hmm.
I will wait to see if you could say click and admit them.
Okay, sounds good. And I've got the good morning message all typed out and ready to go when people start coming in.
Okay. It is common for people to come in late, right, on time, early, as well as late. It is also common for people to drop off and then come back in. So I typically leave the people section, right? I'll toggle between people and chat because I'll hear, if I'm not paying attention, it'll be a quick little bing and that's it. And then somebody will be stuck in lobby waiting forever.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
That's good.
Oh, and just so you know, I sent everything over to Jenna to redo the profit organization highlight. So she's got everything she needs.
Awesome. I'll take a peek at that in the active campaign too.
Now it's just
All right, it is letting me admit people, just so you know.
Morning, everyone. We're going to give just a few more seconds here or a minute to see if anyone else joins, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So please bear with us. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started here. If others join, they can jump in as on the fly here. So welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us on our last presentation of the year. Shockingly enough, this is our final presentation for this year. We do have 2 others already scheduled upcoming for next year. However, this will be the last one for this year. So welcome, everybody. Just a few housekeeping items. You are muted and auto muted. So if you have any questions on the fly, you can type them in there in chat. We do have a moderator watching that. I'm also watching it. So hopefully between one of us, we'll catch the question. If we don't get to your question while we're doing the presentation, I will obviously circle back and answer it at the end. There is a Q&A section at the end, but I will try to catch it on the fly here as we go along here. So we got a little small participation this time around, so I might be able to interact a little differently with everybody. So let's go ahead and get started here. So my name's Brian. I am the CTO here at PCA Technology Group. I'm also an ethical hacker, and basically all that all that means is that what I'm talking about is pretty much I can do all of that. And basically it's just a way of being able to protect our clients. You have to know how to do it in order to protect them from it. So it's kind of one of those things that just kind of goes along with the trade. So let's start off and figure out why we even worried about cybersecurity. Well, there's a couple of things. You might recognize some of the logos that are on this screen here. Some of them are big companies. One's a local company here. Rubis was breached recently, and that's a company right here out of Western New York. Some of the other ones here, big ones, Microsoft, LastPass is hit yet again, and we'll talk more about that when we get into the password section. Uber, the Uber had a breach where some of their client data was also compromised, and the most recent one is Rackspace. That is for those of you not familiar with who Rackspace is, it is basically a web hosting company. They do a lot of co-located dedicated servers and things like that, and they also provided email services out to individual companies and things. So basically they hosted Exchange is what it was. Their whole Exchange infrastructure got ransomwared, and basically they were dead. They were basically burned to the ground for the most part on their Exchange side. And it's one of those things where they were caught in the ransomware. I think it wasn't publicly disclosed yet, but the ransomware amount obviously was extremely high because the bad guys realized who they had, and they opted not to pay it, and they are in the process, if they haven't moved their clientele over to Microsoft's hosted Exchange, they're in the process of doing that. At least to get them back up and running on email flow. However, I think all the email data is gone at this point, from what I understand. But it's a shame. I'm not picking on Rackspace, but if companies this big are getting hit by hackers, what chances do small to medium-sized businesses have of trying to avoid it? And that's really what we're talking about here is how can you potentially avoid these type of attacks, so you're not put in that situation where you have to figure out how to get yourself out of it. Along with that, obviously, if your business model requires any type of compliance issues, whether it's HIPAA or SOC or DFS, every company in New York State's obviously a New York State Shield Act. However, you got to make sure that you're at least being compliant. And let's be honest, you can see the statistics here from 2021 or 2020 to 2021. The statistics for this year are not any better. In fact, they're actually worse. So this situation is not getting better. This situation is getting worse, and you need to be aware of that and protect yourself to the best of your ability. The other thing that you need to be aware of is that once a bad actor somehow obtains access to your systems, it's not like they send a message up or pop a flare off saying, "Hey, I got you," or "Here I am." They're in your system for potentially up to 7 months, and before they're detected, they could be doing a bunch of different things. First of all, they're probably trying to figure out, one, who it is, whose system they're in. So they got to figure out that, because most of the time the targets, you're not specifically targeted. It's just one of those things where you end up being caught in the net, and they're trying to figure out who they got. So they're in there looking around. They're trying to figure out what is valuable. Once they figure out who it is, they determine, oh, well, hey, is there any credit card information? Is there any social security card, any private data that might be useful to them? And then they do one of two things, or they possibly do a combination of both. The first thing is they might pull that data off and basically download it off your systems, copies of it off your system. And then they will threaten to post that or sell that on the dark web if you don't give them X amount of money to stop them from doing it. It's basically extortion. The second thing that they could potentially do is just say, well, you know what? I think there's more value in locking this data. So what they'll do is they'll encrypt your data with an encryption key that only they have the unlock ability of. And then they say, okay, well, if you want to access your data, you are going to need to pay me X amount of dollars. That's the ransomware side of it. And sometimes they do both. Sometimes they lock it and they try to sell it, so they get you on both sides of the coin. So it's kind of one of those things where you want to try to avoid getting yourself in this situation, so you're not left with that decision, or if it even is a decision at that point. So the other statistic too is to make you guys aware of is that 60% of the businesses that suffer a significant breach of some sort or another normally would go out of business within 6 months of that significant breach. So you can see how detrimental this could be for businesses that go through and suffer these type of events. So who's responsible? Everybody that's watching this right now is responsible. A lot of folks think that, oh, well, it's my IT's problem, or you know what, I'm just an employee, it's the owner's problem, or the shareholder's problem, or whatever. No, it's everyone's problem. Everyone that you think is responsible for this is a piece of the puzzle, but ultimately anybody that is using a computer of any way, shape, or form is responsible for this. We like to call it the human firewall, and basically it's the last line of defense. Because I'll be quite honest with you, the bad guys aren't attacking the technology, they're attacking the humans. They go after the humans in the chair because those are the people that'll open the doors for them. They don't need to get through the security when they've got somebody opening the door inadvertently for them. So that's the key. So you got to be aware of what you're doing and realize that you as an individual are responsible for a piece of that cybersecurity. So how does this happen? The bad guys use a technique, it's called social engineering. And basically all it is they're manipulating human behavior to get you to do what you want, or get you to do what they want. I'm sorry. And it's one of those things where it's extremely, extremely easy to do, and you could be getting manipulated and not even realize it. It's one of those things where you've got to be super aware of things and at least know some of the tactics that these bad guys use, and we're going to explain how some of that happens. I like to use the analogy that the hackers nowadays using social engineering are kind of like the snake oil salesmen or the con men back in the early days, where they would go around selling these magic elixirs, and it was nothing more than a bottle of flavored oil that people thought was some magic potion, or people were buying swampland in Florida thinking it was the best investment they've ever made, and realized that they can't even develop on it because it's swampland. So that's really what it is. They're tricking people to do what they want to do, and we'll show you how that happens here. So some of the most common attacks, one thing to be aware of is that email is probably responsible for about 90 to 95% of the social engineering attacks out there. So they heavily, heavily, heavily use email. So it's definitely something to be hyper aware of, and also be on the lookout for these type of tactics. And we'll show you what some of these tactics look like as we go on here. But how's it happen? So it's done through phishing. It could be done through spear phishing, and we'll explain what some of that stuff is. So how do they get information, and how do they do some of this stuff? Well, they scrape social media. Unfortunately, we're in a day and age where everybody posts everything about their lives on social media. And it's one of those things where, what you may not realize is those settings, even though you think they may be private and set to only your friends, there's still ways to get in that, even around those security settings. So pretty much everything you're posting on social media, you can pretty much consider out there for anybody to see. And that's not just picking on Facebook or your Twitters or whatever. It goes to LinkedIn as well too. So even from a business side, they're scraping information and gathering potential targets for things and attack vectors that they could potentially use as victims. So what are the trends? We kind of talked a little bit about this already. Most of the time it's ransomware and extortion. There is some automation stuff going on now, and basically what that is that there is, unfortunately, there's ransomware as a service out there where if you get into the dark web, you could actually purchase yourself a fully functional ransomware platform that is managed by somebody else, and you just pay a subscription fee to, and then you're pretty much taking care of everything else, basically giving them victims and stuff, and they go in and hack them and things like that, and you get X percentages of money for that. You also get arrested for it too, but when you get caught. But it's one of those things where there's some automation going on now. Who's behind it? Most of the time, it could be criminal groups. It could be third nation states that are not allies of the U.S. is normally what it is. The governments in these unallied states realize this is a very, very profitable business model for them. And people tend to pay the ransomware. And it's one of those things where they actually employ, the government actually employs people to do this for them as part of their income and stuff. So it's one of those things where that's always potential. Some of the attack vectors, obviously most of this is done via the internet or cloud. Sometimes it's done on your mobile devices. Very rarely is it a physical on-site attack, but occasionally if you are specifically being targeted, which isn't often, but it could potentially be that. So it's just something to be aware of. So how can we avoid some of this stuff? Well, first of all, here are some tips and tricks on how to avoid some common pitfalls. Web surfing. If you do any type of web surfing from your work PC or while you're connected to the work network with any type of device, keep that web surfing limited to business use. If you do that, it will lower your attack vectors tremendously. You don't need to be checking the local news to figure out who your favorite politician, where they are in the polls, or checking your recipe sites while you're at work or things like that. If you keep it limited to, okay, I need to figure out if this part fits that. Okay, you need to research that. Great. Okay. I need to know the directions to this place so I can send my delivery driver there. Okay, great. Hey, does this place sell this item or something? That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Keep it limited to business use. And if you do that, you will lower your potential pitfall for falling into one of these traps out there that the bad guys like to set up on websites that you could potentially, avoid by following this recommendation. Also, from the social media side, obviously I would stay away from social media if you could. I know a lot of businesses use social media as part of their marketing, and that's fine. But you need to be careful of what you're doing and how you're doing it on that site. And this just isn't talking about your Facebooks and things like that. It's also talking about your LinkedIn and whatnot. You got to be very, very careful of what you're posting, what you're not posting on those sites, and how you interact with folks on that from that standpoint. I get a lot of questions from this. Well, what if what about contacts and connections and stuff? I know on Facebook, a lot of people go after, oh, well, I've got 10,000 followers, and then my immediate question is, okay, how many of those 10,000 do you actually know personally and are actually real? 1, 2, 3, maybe, great. You got 10,000 followers. Half of them are bots or whatever. On the LinkedIn side, before you accept any type of request, you might want to just kind of do a little background pre-screening, I would say, before you just allow them in, because while LinkedIn is a little different and it's more business oriented, you do open up sections of your business LinkedIn by allowing others into your sections that you might not be able to view if they weren't followers of yours. So it can be used to harvest information for sure. So if a bad actor is pretending to be somebody and you don't really do some pre-screening on that, you may just inadvertently let them in, and now they have they know all your followers, and they know who your employees are, they know names of people, they know their titles, and they could potentially use that as some phishing campaigns to try to trick people into clicking on things and stuff. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. The other thing too is keep your browsers updated. Anybody that uses Chrome or Firefox, those browsers get updates frequently, almost once a week on the Chrome side. Sometimes it's multiple times during the week. Make sure that if you're getting an alert when you open up your browser saying, hey, there's an update available, make sure you apply that update. It doesn't mean that Chrome's a bad browser. It just means that they fix things when it gets alerted to them very quickly. That's why they have so many updates out there. Edge, Safari, whatever your flavor of browser is, just make sure you're keeping those updated, because any exploits in the browser could be leveraged potentially by malicious actors if they find them. Pop-ups, this is a very easy way to get people to do things. Be very cautious of suspicious pop-ups. And again, if you're following the keep your surfing to the business use, this should limit those potential pitfalls. But what happens is the bad guys realize that people will click on certain sections of the pop-up windows, and what they tend to do is put something what's called a pop on top of that, underneath that window. So when you're clicking on the X to close it out, or the close button at the bottom, it's not only closing that window out, it's actually clicking a link that's buried underneath that window that's also capturing that click that is downloading something in the background that might allow that bad actor to come into your machine later on without you even realizing it. So you've got to be aware that, be concerned about some suspicious pop-ups and things like that. Most of the new browsers do have pop-up blockers built into them now, so a lot of that is kind of contained. But if you find yourself in a situation where you're on a site that might be questionable, or if you've never visited before and you don't know whether to click the link or not to close it out, what you can do is you can hit Control W on your keyboard. That will close down the window with focus, which is usually that pop-up window. If that doesn't work, you can also hit Alt F4 on your keyboard. That will actually close the entire browser down, so you will not have to click on that pop-up window at that point, and it'll just shut it down for you. On mobile phones, I get this question a lot. Can't help you, unfortunately. All the phones out there, there's so many different techniques for each model and each version of phones out there. There's no surefire way to do it other than you got to figure out how to end the task of that browser window that you're on your phone. And unfortunately, like I said, it's different on all the platforms, so I can't really give you a straight answer on that one. The other tactic that the bad guys are using is something called a browser in the browser attack. So this kind of leverages a couple things. One, it leverages the fact that most people don't like to remember 10,000 passwords for every website that they go to. So this is leveraging something called SSO, or single sign-on. And what it is, it's a login, an integration that allows you to link existing accounts to logins of other sites. So in this case, it might be your Microsoft account, or it might be your Facebook account, or your Apple, or your Google, your Discord, your Steam, things like that you already have an account for. Sometimes when you visit a new site, or you want to sign up to something on a new site, it will actually come up on the page and saying, hey, would you like to continue with your Apple account, or continue with your Google account? And on the screen here, you can see this is a site that will show you here where my cursor is going around. And in this case, they actually picked the center one here, which is signing with Google. So it looks like they're on Canva site, and they're trying to use their Google account to create a login using that integration with their Google account. So what will happen is when you log into Canva, if you set this up, it will utilize your existing Google account in this case and link that in, so you only have to remember your Google login instead of umpteen logins. I understand the simplicity of it, but the bad guys are using a malicious version of this, and we'll show you what it is. And unfortunately, it's easy to fall for, and it's difficult to detect visually. I will tell you how to detect it, but it is difficult to detect visually. And I'll show you what I'm talking about here. So this is an example of a site that is trying to leverage your Facebook account as part of its login. So you can see on the left-hand side here, this is the phishing one here. And then on the right side, this is the real version of it. And you can look at these things till you're blue in the face. These things are exactly identical, right down to the URL. If we would show you the full URL, it's actually facebook.com. It matches the real one. Even if you click on the link over here, the padlock, it will actually show you the certificate is the same as over here. These are literally pound for pound the exact same thing. Unfortunately, though, what happens is if you click this one on the phishing side and you actually put your Facebook information in here, the way this is designed is it will actually allow you to log into whatever site you're trying to log into, but it will also send your credentials to the bad guys. So you can see visually, if you're on a site that you're not 100% sure whether it's valid or not, visually, you are not going to be able to tell whether it's real or whether it isn't. There's no way for you to ever know. It's not going to fail like some of the other things do. It's just going to work, and you're never going to even realize it. And I'll show you another example here. This one is an example using Google. The exact same thing. The left side is the phishing one. The right side is the real one. The only difference here visually is the phishing one actually has a create an account on it, where the real one doesn't. That could have just been a versioning thing at that point or something. But that is the only difference between the two. Again, the padlocks, if you click those, they would be exactly the same on both. The URLs are exactly the same on both. Everything is matched 100%. Even if you log into this one, again, this will log you into whatever site you're trying to link your Google account to, but it's going to send your Google information to the bad guys. That's what this window is designed to do. I don't know. Okay, I don't have another example, but here's how you can tell whether, if you run into a situation where you're thinking about using this and you're not 100% positive whether it's the real one or not. Okay, I'll tell you how to do this, because of how the bad guys present the phishing version of this. If you actually take your cursor to the top of this window on either one of them, if you drag, you right click it or left click it and try to drag it outside of your browser window. So what you would do is you would actually try to drag this out of the window off your screen. And if it actually moves outside of the browser, it is the real version. So in other words, if you drag this out of the browser off the screen, it should pop up a new window with this entire window in it outside of your browser. If you try to do that on the fake version, you're going to get to the edge of the browser window and it's going to stop. It's not going to let you drag it out. And that's because of how the bad guys are leveraging the technology to get this to work. It will not allow it to break out of that browser window. So that is an easy way to figure out whether, okay, is this a real version or is it a fake version, if you intend to use any of that single sign-on thing. And it will work, regardless whether it's Google or Facebook or whatever. Just drag that window and try to get out of the browser. If it lets you out of the browser with it, it's the real one. If it doesn't, it's fake, and do not put your information in there. So that's the only way you can really test at this point in time. So that leads us on to email. As I mentioned, email is a big vector. About 90 to 95% of the attempts, social engineering attempts, come from that. So how do we avoid it? Almost the same way as web browsing. Do not use your work email for personal use. Right now is the perfect time for it. Well, it's probably past the perfect time for it, but Christmas is literally right around the corner. In our November one, I mentioned, hey, Black Friday was coming up, and everybody likes to use their work email for their Christmas shopping and their coupon codes and all this other stuff, and it has nothing to do with work related. Guess what? You're gonna fall for an attack, because the bad guys use fake shipping notices, fake purchases, fake invoicing, all kinds of stuff like that. They love it. They love when people use their work email for personal use because it's so easy for them to slip something under your nose. You're clicking on an invoice, you're opening up an invoice that isn't real, or you're following a link to an invoice that's stealing your account credentials. It's so easy to do. If you actually separate what you do at work versus what you do at personal, if you get one of those emails in your work email, you don't even have to think twice about it. Hey, I don't buy anything on Amazon. Delete instantly. You don't even have to think about it. The other thing too is that if you are accessing your personal email while you're connected to the work network or your work PC, you've got to be cautious because it's pretty much the same thing as using your work email for personal usage. You were opening that email, whether you're going to the web. If you're opening up an email on the web on your personal account, you're doing it off your work PC. So you've got to be aware of that. Excuse me. And not do that. I would suggest if you need to check your personal email, do it on your phone using your data plan, not while you're connected to the work network, and check your email that way, or wait till you get home. One or the other. That way you're not potentially opening something malicious while you're connected to work resources. I also recommend anybody that's using Outlook as their email client that to disable, it used to be called the preview pane, now it's called the reading pane, but same concept is that you can see here that what happens here is this window on the right hand side here actually is the reading pane, and it shows the contents of this highlighted message at the top here. So why is that a problem? Well, it's a convenience for some, but it's a problem from a security standpoint. Why is that? Because every message that comes into your email box at the top is getting displayed over here, opened and displayed automatically because you have this turned on. That means you're not manually opening this email anymore. This is doing it for you. So the problem that comes with that is one, if a bad guy's testing to see if an email account is active or not, they might have a hidden image in this thing that when you open this email, it shows that they opened it. A lot of marketing does this. All that the sales things do that too. They know when you open the emails because they have hidden embedded images in them. And you don't see it, but it sends a beacon back to them saying it was open. Well, this thing is opening it by itself without you even interacting. So you could be gone for lunch, and this thing could open 20 email messages while you're gone for lunch, and you got to go back and figure out which ones you saw and which ones you didn't see because this is opening them for you as they hit your inbox. The other problem too is if there's something malicious on this, not just a hidden image that's tracking whether it was open or not, but if there's something malicious on this that happens to run while this is opened, Microsoft hopefully catches it, but if it doesn't, and you find a way to slip it past it, this is now running in the background without you even doing anything to the message. So highly recommend you turn this off. To do that, you go up to the view page here, or the view tab here. Scroll over to where it says reading pane here. You can see that's highlighted. If you click that little drop down window, it should say right, bottom, and off, and a drop down. If you just select the off, that will literally get rid of this window for you. And now these will expand out, and all you will see is just the messages. And now you have to double click them to open them. That is the manual piece that you want. So you can pre-screen the messages now. Hey, I'm getting a message from eBay. Well, you know what? I'm listening to Brian. I'm not using my work email for personal usage or buying stuff off of eBay. So you know what? I know I can just delete that. If you're running preview pane, guess what? You open that message, or it opened that message for you. Whether you wanted to open it or not, there was no pre-screening because this did it for you automatically. So just be aware of that. Highly recommend you turn this off. So let's get into the meat of this. So we mentioned about phishing. What is a phishing email? Think of a phishing email as walking up to a pond that you're not familiar with a handful of breadcrumbs and a fishing net. You don't know if there's any fish in there. You don't know what fish are in there. You just got a handful of breadcrumbs and a fishing net. So what do? You walk up to the pond, you take your handful of breadcrumbs, you throw it in the pond, and you sit and you wait. Guess what? All of a sudden, you see one of the breadcrumbs disappear. You saw something come to the surface. So you get your net ready because you think he's going to come back for the next one. You still don't know what it was, but you know something grabbed it. Now you see it come back up quickly. You swoop the net underneath it. You catch it in your net, and now you're looking to see what took your bait. That's the same thing what phishing is. That's what the bad guys do. They send blankets of emails out looking for whoever takes the bait, and then figure out who they got on the other end once the bait's taken. So in this case, this is an email that is intended to look like it's coming from Microsoft. As I mentioned, they try to trick people. This is one of the tactics that they use. They send you an email that looks like it's coming from Microsoft, and it saying that, hey, your password's expired, and they want you to click on this change your password link, or you can even go to the other one underneath there that is also a change your password link. They want you, the idea of this email is that, oh my gosh, my password's expired, I need to click on one of these 2 links. Boom, they got you. That's what they want you to do. They want you to click on these links, so be aware of that. That's what they're trying to manipulate you to do. Scare you with the password's expired. Oh my God, I can't go without my email. Oh, I got to change my password. So you immediately just click on these links. So if you blindly follow these and fall for this tactic, what happens? You click on either that link or you click on either that link. It doesn't really matter because they all go to the same place. It's a site that is designed to look like Microsoft. It's a fake site. It's set up by the person who sent you this email. And basically what's going to happen, it's going to ask you for your username and login, and which is your email and whatever your password is. And you're probably going to get some kind of an error message when you type that in and hit login. And two things are going to happen. It's either going to constantly keep doing that because the bad guy isn't intelligent enough to create this campaign in such a way that they can trick you even further, or the smart ones what'll happen is the second time it'll work. Well, what happened the first time around, or the one that keeps failing? Basically, every time you enter in your username and password there, it is recording that information and emailing it and sending it to the bad guy. So you are physically giving your login information away every time you attempt to log in. When it's failing, it's failing, it's failing, it's failing, it's failing. If it's a good hacker and smart hacker, what they'll do is they'll let you fail the first time around, and then they will actually redirect you. They'll refresh the page, redirect you to the right Microsoft site. You won't realize you moved from the fake one to the real one. And then when you log in the second time, it actually works, and you just think you fat-fingered your password the first time around. And you'll just go about your day and not even think anything of it. You just think you mistyped your password the first time. That's a smart hacker. The idea behind this is you get one of these emails, do not ever click on any links that are in any email that you're getting out of the blue. Just do not do it. It's so hard to determine whether these are going to the right places. It's not easy for common users to do. My recommendation is don't click on the links. What I want you to do instead is, if you are a Microsoft user and you get one of these emails, I want you to open up a brand new browser, whatever your browser of choice is. Go to Microsoft's site yourself by typing it in there. That way you know you are getting to the right Microsoft site, and then log in. If this is real, the minute you try to log in, it's going to tell you, hey, your password's expired. You need to reset it. Otherwise, you could blindly follow one of these links that are pointing to fake sites, and it's exactly what the bad guys want you to do. Another example is the same thing. It could be coming from a bank this time. This one is just an example of saying they want you to verify a potential withdrawal in another country. Please click on this link here to do the verification. Well, guess what? Same thing as before. This is a site that is designed to look just like Trusted Bank, and it's going to steal your banking credentials this time around. So again, if you're at trustedbank.com or M&T, Citizens, Key Bank, whatever your local bank is here, Buffalo Bank, whatever. If you're one of those customers and you get one of these emails out of the blue, do not click on any of those links. Go to a web page, type it in yourself, and visit the website yourself by you typing it in. Then log in. If this is real, somewhere in your message system there, it's going to say once you're logged into the real site that this is real. Otherwise, 9 times out of 10, these are probably designed to steal your credentials. The only time I would suggest you actually could potentially click a link is if it's something that you are literally expecting or that you just generated. So what I mean by that is sometimes if you legitimately do change your password at a site somewhere, a lot of times it'll say, hey, or I forgot my password. Then you can click that link, because a lot of times those links are buried with certain codes and stuff to make sure that it's coming from the right person. That's something you just generated. That's okay. But if you're getting one of those out of the blue and you didn't just generate that, never, ever, ever click on those links. You can stop probably 90% of the phishing attempts, but simply by not clicking on any embedded links in your emails. Literally, it's that simple. Could be an invoice. Hey, here's an invoice, and instead of the invoice being attached, it could be something at the bottom. Please click this link, and it sends you to a fake site that looks like OneDrive, and it's stealing your Microsoft credentials again. Just if it looks like it's coming from a resource, contact that resource. Don't open the link. Contact the resource and verify that it's actually that person, and that this is actually valid. It might take a little more to legwork, and yeah, I realize convenience isn't always in the realm of security, but that's the world we live in right now. It's either that or you potentially get hacked. That's the unfortunate reality that we live in. So again, don't click on these links unless it's something that you're expecting. Now we go into spear phishing. So unlike the first thing where you're walking up to a pond with a handful of breadcrumbs, not knowing what fish are in there, spear phishing is a little more tactical. You know what fish is in that pond, and you're using something specifically to try to catch a specific fish. That's what spear phishing is. So it's more targeted. In this case, it's someone that usually pretends to be an internal employee, and the HR and payroll are usually the victims of these type of potential attacks. It's not always, but sometimes. Most times it is, and it's in the realm of what we have the example here, that they reach out to the HR person pretending to be an internal employee. How did they get that information? I already told you. Facebook, social media, LinkedIn. All your employees are either following your company or probably attached to your company, or you have them posted on your company site. It's not hard to gather a list of employees that work at companies. So this person is pretending to be an internal employee, and they are sending this email into the HR person saying, hey, I want you to update my direct deposit information because I've changed my bank, and can this be effective immediately? If you don't have proper procedures and policies in place at your organization, when you get these type of requests and you just blindly follow this email, what's going to happen? Well, you're going to change the direct deposit for this employee, and what you're going to end up realizing is that come payroll time, this employee is going to say, hey, I didn't get paid, and you're going to be like, well, you told me to change your bank account information, and they're going to be like, I didn't tell you anything, and you're going to realize you just got duped. You sent that person's payroll to a drop account that was set up by a bad guy using stolen credentials at a bank. Once that money hit that electronically, they emptied it out, and they're gone with the wind. So now you're out that person's payroll because you have to reimburse the real person with the payroll because you didn't follow proper procedures. It's not the employee's fault. It's technically the company's fault for not following through and verifying that this is actually the person that was actually making that request. How do you fix that? You need to put policies in place. Never blindly follow any type of financial request via email without either signed paperwork in front of you in person or verbal communication, either in person or at a known phone number. Never call somebody on a cell phone that's transmitted via an email. You need to have a known number for that person or require that they do this in person. That way you know it's actually the employee that is requesting this. That's the biggest way to stop these type of things. Whaling is another way. Whaling is going after, obviously, exactly what it sounds like, going after the big fish. Now you're going after big fish, or you're pretending to be the big fish. In that case, most of the time, this is either targeting CE level folks or it is pretending to be a C-level folk. So in this case, this is someone pretending to be the CFO, and they are emailing somebody that either works underneath that or works in the department or at that company, whichever, saying, hey, it's Roger, I'm the CFO, and are you busy? I'm out of the office and I need you to process or wire transfer for me today. That's one tactic. Or, hey, I'm out of the office and I need you to go get me some gift cards. That's another common one that we see all the time. Again, any type of requests like this that are just asking for any type of financial transactions via email, The first thing you need to do when you get this is you need to pick up the phone or walk over to Roger's office, see if he actually is out of the office. And if he is out of the office, you need to call him on a known cell phone, and reach out to him and say, hey, are you asking me to do this wire transfer? Or are you asking me to go buy these gift cards? Is it really you? Because I got this email. More likely than not, you're going to realize that, oh, wait, it's not him. And you're going to just stop a potential mistake. If it does happen to be them, you know what? At least you verified, and they should not punish you. I know a lot of people are like, well, I can't question my C-level person. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And you should in this instance. And if your C-level person gets upset for you for validating whether they actually made this request via email, shame on them. That's all I can say. Shame on them, because you're looking out for the best interest of the company. So there's no reason why you should be fearing, questioning a C-level person, even if you're new. It's a rolling joke here. Every new employee that comes in at our company here, we let them know right out of the gate, because it happens on almost every new employee we get. They get an email that pretends to be coming from our CEO asking them to go buy gift cards. So we just let them know before they even get in the building that, you know what, you're going to get an email from the that they use on us. They're probably watching LinkedIn, and the announcement that, hey, welcome here or welcome there, so they're getting that new employee and trying to get them right out of the gate to see if they can fall for it. But that's how you stop that type of thing. There's one other way to do it too, and this is a fairly easy way. At least visually, you can at least get some questions on these type of things. So I highly recommend, if you're an M365 client, make sure that you enable, you can see this yellow banner here. This is called external email notification. No charge in it at all. It's just a configuration setting to enable. And I highly recommend you put this at the top of the message. I know some clients of ours like to put it at the bottom for some reason. Very easy to miss at the bottom, because you have to scroll through the entire message, and 9 times out of 10, the person has already acted on that email somewhere, if there was a link in there, before they realized that it was an external one. So highly put this right at the top so you can see it. And what happens is that this is a dead giveaway for anybody that is pretending to be an internal employee emailing another internal employee. So if you've got somebody in one of your departments, or your C-level person that is emailing you, and it has this banner on it, you better look at that email very, very closely and be very, very suspicious of it, because if it was really an internal employee emailing another internal employee, it would never have this banner on it if it's coming through company email, because your company email routes internally. It doesn't route externally, which is where this message comes from. So this is an extremely easy way to pick it up. You can also see this on your cell phone too, because a lot of people look at their emails on their cell phone. Now, there's one other thing you can do potentially too, along with this. Not only can you add this message, you can also change and add a prefix to the subject line here. Some clients opt to put external in there. So basically external, colon, and then the actual subject line. So it'll pre-pen that. So if you are on a cell phone, because you can't see this until you open the message, if you are on a cell phone, you will immediately see that it says external before the actual subject of the line. So you can see that very easily on your cell phone. Some people opt not to do that because it tends to make the subject line longer. But I will tell you, if you're on a cell phone, you're not going to see this until you open the email. And by the time you do that and realize you see this, it could be too late. In Outlook, it's a lot easier because you can kind of look at other things that are on the email that might be a giveaway. But it's just something else that you could potentially add to. But definitely recommend this, because if you do this, you're not going to get those messages from an employee to payroll if it has this, because you're going to know right away it's not coming from that person. I have to do a little more legwork and investigate this. So easy visual way. So the bad guys also realize that not only are people getting a little smarter, they're listening to what I'm saying, and they're not clicking my links anymore. The guy's ruining it for me. Well, great. So what they decided to do is they decided to create something called consent phishing. So now they're using embedded applications through Microsoft that are going to try to get the dirty work done for them. So what happens is that you know, you might be on a site or something and you get a pop-up. It looks like this screen right here. Basically, this application thing is going to pop up there, and it's going to say, hey, permission requested. I want you to access all this stuff, either cancel or accept. If you're not careful and you get one of these things out of the blue and you click on accept, what you're effectively doing is giving everybody, whoever created this, you're giving this application full access to your entire Microsoft ecosystem. That means your contacts, your mail, your calendar, your OneNotes, your files, everything, without having your password. This thing bypasses the password because you're allowing it to. So basically, this is enacting as a user on your behalf without needing a password. And oh, if you are using MFA, guess what? This bypasses that too. And we'll talk about MFA if you're not sure what that is. If you get one of these on your window, on your machine, and you're a client of ours, you need to call our support desk. Just call our support desk, say, hey, I got this app that popped up. I need you to take a look at it. Now, there are instances where sometimes valid programs will use this integration. A lot of CRMs do it, things like that. It doesn't matter. Please call us. It'll take us a few seconds to remote into your computer, take a quick peek at it, and we can tell whether it's going to be valid or isn't. And if the person on the phone can't tell, they're going to bring me into the call, and I'll take a look at it. In this case, you know, obviously, visually, you can tell this is pretty quickly. This is a malicious one. It does say risky app here, and it's also unverified. Basically, what they'll do is they'll create this through Microsoft, and Microsoft does have a verification process. That in order to get some of this off, you have to go through the verification process for them. This one obviously didn't do that. But again, you get one of these pop up, please call our desk. It's that simple. Because if you do click accept here, and let's say you do accidentally click this by mistake because they caught you in a moment where you weren't thinking, you click this by mistake, again, call us as fast as you can. Because the quicker we know about this, the faster we can potentially limit the damages that are going to be done by this. So that's just a tactic that they're using now. Another thing they're doing too is they're leveraging QR codes. I know this is handy in some situations, but I'm telling you, it's very easily used for malicious purposes too. Why? Well, first of all, in order to go anywhere, you've got to scan this with your cell phone. And when you scan this with your cell phone and you look at the URL, even if you can see the URL, it's a shortened URL, so it still doesn't tell you where you're going ahead of time. So you're blindly following this, not knowing exactly where it's going. The only time you're really going to realize it is when you actually get to the destination, and by then it might be too late. Just something to be aware of. You know, be careful just blindly following QR codes. These can be used handily, but they can also be used maliciously, so just use caution. And an easy example of that is, let's say I'm targeting someone individually on this call, and I know because of your Facebook, your favorite restaurant, because you post about it every time you're there. Well, guess what? If I'm targeting you and I want to try to entice you to do something, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to make a visit because it's local to me. I'm going to make a visit to your favorite restaurant, and I'm going to go and I'm going to replace every one of the, if they have them, the touchless menus that are on their desktops. I'm gonna replace them with malicious versions. That way, when it scans, it might show you the menu, but it also might put something on your device that you don't realize maliciously, and I could potentially hack you that way. Or if they're not using them, I can just drop this on a table and people won't realize it, and probably for a week or so, or later that evening, that, oh, you know what, we're not even using menus. Where'd this come from, you know? So just be aware. That's how easy it is. I'm telling you, that's how easy it is. Literally, you know, a lot of restaurants went to touchless menus, and things like that. And a perfect example of how easy it is to get people to scan this thing. Last year, it was an advertisement on the Super Bowl. Anybody that watched the Super Bowl, there was a commercial, and all it was a black screen with one of these codes bouncing back and forth like Pong from the old Atari days. That's all it was. And they had 2 million people scan that code. There was no writing. There was no nothing. It was a black screen with this code bouncing around on the screen. That's all it was. 2 million people scanned that code. 2 million people. That is insane. Had no idea where it went, just blindly scanned it. Now, in that case, it was marketing genius, absolutely marketing genius, and it wasn't malicious. But in the case that there was malicious actors in that, that shows you how easy it was. It was a black screen with a code bouncing on it. I'm just going to scan it. Okay, great. It just goes to show you how easy it is to manipulate and social engineer folks. So, moving on, USB and mobile devices. If you ever end up with finding a USB flash drive, the little flash drives that people use sometimes to store data on, please, please, please don't insert that into your machine if you don't know where it came from. There could be malicious software just waiting to auto run once you plug that into your machine. So be very, very cautious of that. If you do happen to use one of those devices for your files, you transfer maybe photos or drawings or something back and forth, make sure you're doing virus scans on both sides, where you're copying the files from and where you copy your files to. That way you're sure that nothing is potentially hitchhiking on that USB key that could potentially infect either side of that. When it comes to smartphones, almost everybody has a smartphone nowadays, and everybody realizes how much of a battery hog they are. So a lot of folks will take their charging cords, which are usually USB cables, and plug them into their phone and be like, oh, well, hey, you know what? I can just throw this in my laptop or my desktop to charge. And yes, you can do that. It will do that. But a lot of folks don't realize that it not only charges your device, but it also turns your cell phone into a USB flash drive. So basically, it's not only charging your device, but it's also turning it into a USB flash drive, where you could potentially copy things back and forth on the phone and off the phone while it's plugged into your PC. So what we don't want that to happen. So basically, I recommend you bring the wall brick, the little charger that plugs into the electrical outlet, and use that to charge your phones. You could do that even when you're traveling, which leads us into the next one here. That if you're out and about and don't have your charger with you, there's a lot of public charging stations out there that are set up sometimes at malls, hotels, airports, restaurants, sometimes things like that. You've got to be cautious about them. While they're there to be good, the bad guys realize they're also easy targets. So they set up malicious versions of those. What is that? It's basically called juice jacking. And it pretty much leads on the premise of what I just told you, that many people don't realize that when you plug in your cell phone into a computerized device, it not only charges your phone, but it turns it into a USB flash drive. So what the bad guys do is they set up these malicious public chargers in areas all over the place, waiting for unsuspecting people to just plug their cell phones in there to charge them. And while it will charge them, what you don't realize is it's also stealing all of your data off your phone. So it's basically taking your contacts, your files, your photos, your emails, your pretty much everything. So you've got to be very, very cautious about public charging stations. And again, either deal with it, dead battery, or carry your wall brick with you. If you're a woman or a female, obviously those wall bricks are really small. You could probably put them in your purse. Guys, you could put it in your pocket, or some guys carry backpacks and things like that. You could do it in that too, but it's just something to be aware of, that you got to be cautious of these type of things. So that leads us into passwords. So passwords. What we recommend is complex, secure, and unique passwords. We say 10 characters at minimum, at least one special character, one uppercase letter, and one number. So everyone's probably thinking, okay, how am I going to remember 10-character passwords with all this complexity and make them unique across every site I go to? Well, I'm going to show you a couple of different ways you could potentially do that. First of all, the most obvious is the online password managers. I'm not a fan of them. I don't use them, and I will never use them. That's my personal take on those. I'm not saying you can't use them. There is value in using them. The reason why I don't use them is because the bad guys know that's where all the passwords are. And the bad guys also make them huge targets. There is about 4 or 5 big ones out there. And out of those 4 or 5, 3 of them have been breached already. And 2 of them have been breached multiple times. So LastPass was one of them. They've been breached 3 times now. That was one of the ones on the first screen we showed you. That is one of the big ones, and they've been breached 3 times. If you want to store your passwords there, have at it. Not me. I'm going to do it in a different way. I actually keep my passwords in a secured way. I do it in 2 different ways. I actually store my passwords on a USB key. That USB key is encrypted. And basically, in order for me to get access to that, I have to remember one password. That password is 24 characters long. So I know exactly what that password is. That's the only password I have to remember. Once I log in and unlock that key, I have a listing of my passwords in that key. It's actually in a text file. But I also, in the aspect, I don't write the entire password down on that list, on that text file. So I can actually bring that list up on the screen here, show it to everybody, and be confident that you're never going to guess what my password is because it's not the real password that's written there. So how do I do that? Well, you can do it a couple different ways. You can do it with known missing characters. So what you write down on the paper, you might have some missing characters that you know where those missing characters are. They're the same on every single password, and it's the same characters, whatever it is. So in this case, you can see there's 2 missing characters at the beginning of this password, and there's 1 missing character at the end of this password. So on my password list, all you're seeing is what's in between. You're just seeing these digits here. You don't know there's missing characters, but I do. You have no clue what's missing. You don't know if it's at the beginning, at the end, how many. You don't know any of it. You don't even know what letters they are. So for you to guess my password by looking at my list, you're going to try what's written there. It doesn't work. You're going to try the next one. Doesn't work. You're going to try the next one. Doesn't work. And you're going to give up and say, this is an old list. It must not be accurate. That's how you can potentially write passwords down without physically writing the full passwords down. Yes, you have to fill in the missing pieces, but you know what they are and where they are. So it's a way of recording your password without physically recording the entire thing. The other side of it is you can add characters. So you can put extra characters. It's called character padding. And basically you're adding characters. And in this case, I'm adding 2 characters at the beginning and 1 character at the end. Same thing over here. Now, in the example of adding characters, you've got to be a little more strategic with that. Why? Because if I look at that list and I see all your passwords start with A, B, and end with Z, I'm going to figure out that that's what you're adding, and I'm going to be able to figure out that your password is actually in between that. There's software that actually does that. It picks up the pattern. So in this case, you actually have to use different characters. It doesn't matter what they are because you know you're just peeling them off, but they can't be the exact same on every single password. So you can see there's 2 at the beginning here, which is an A and B. There's 2 here, which are Q and 4, and a Y at the end and a Z at the end on that one. So that's how you can potentially record passwords without recording the entire thing. You can actually do a combination of both, added and missing. You just need to remember what you're adding and what you're pulling off. It gets more complicated that way, but I personally like the missing one because you can keep them the same and no one knows they're even missing. They don't even realize it. So it's a lot easier to do it that way. Why do we recommend this? Well, I'll tell you why. Because a 10-character password, if you follow our recommendations, which is up here, numbers, uppercase, lowercase, letters, symbols, it's going to take approximately 5 months for hardware right now to guess every possible combination of that digit password. 5 months. We used to recommend 7. You can see right now with the current hardware, you can guess that in 31 seconds. Every possible combination of a 7-digit password in under 31 seconds. That's how fast someone can brute force your password. So we recommend 10. The idea is that within that 5-month period, we recommend changing your password every 3 months, and it will get changed, but before they guess it. So that's the idea behind that. You can go higher if you wanted to. You can see it goes up. This is going to change next year because the hardware keeps getting faster and faster, and it's based on the hardware tech. So what else can you do? Multi-factor. We mentioned it a little bit, and I'll quickly wrap this up here. Multi-factor is what you have and what you know. It's an extra layer of security. It does stop about 90% of the hacker attempts. So basically, it asks for your username and password, and when it does that, it usually asks one of 2 ways. One is it'll ask for a code on your phone with an app that is generating a code that you need to put in on top of it. So that's something you have and something you know. That's where the multi-factor comes in. And the other piece is it could send a message to your phone saying, hey, are you trying to log in? And that's another way of doing it. And you hit accept, and yes, it is me. But that leads to this next problem here is the bad guys realize that some people use that technology and they use what's called MFA fatigue. So what they do is they spam you with that push notification saying, hey, is it you? 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 And finally you get upset and frustrated to the point where you just hit yes because you think there's an error message, and now you're letting that bad guy potentially bypass your MFA. That only works when you have a compromised credential situation. So my advice to you is if you're using push notification, please, if you start getting spammed on your phone, don't click yes. Call us because your credentials have been compromised. That's the only way that works. So they have your username and password, and they can't get past the MFA, and that's why they're trying to do this, to trick you into just accepting it. So we'll go ahead and end this here. So basically, just some reminders. Be careful. That's the bottom line. Be careful out there. Be aware. It's always safe than sorry. Don't be afraid to bring things to people's attention or question things. Question everything. You should, because that's the reality of it. So hopefully this is helpful to everybody and gives you some awareness. We do have some other things. Obviously we have these on a monthly basis. They do change because the tactics change. So highly recommend you join us. Some of it is repetitive. We also have a YouTube channel that has some more security-focused podcasts. They're audio only, usually about 15 minutes. It really gets into the weeds and some of this stuff, not technically, but just what to look out for, wireless, more on the Facebook stuff, what to post, what not to post, all that kind of stuff. So other than that, I thank you for your time today. Happy holidays, everybody. And I don't see any questions. Oh, nope. I don't see any questions here in chat. So if you do have any questions, you can email us at info@pcatg.com. Thank you, everybody, for your time, and hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Happy New Year and happy holidays.